What are you putting on your lips, Jaylo?
I was just putting on some lip gloss.
Really?
Yes. I'll be there in just a second.
Okay, this will enable me to talk about my beliefs in the world.
Okay.
Apparently not.
I'm here.
Okay. See, I should have started saying that.
No.
And we'll get things started off faster.
Oh, goodness.
Alana.
Yes?
Yesterday I made a mistake when we were doing this.
Did you really?
Nothing huge, but
okay.
I kept saying the name of that artist I like was Aloe Parks.
Which I thought you meant aloe vera. I'm like, that isn't okay.
Apparently, I am bad at listening because I had to Google it when Miss A wouldn't play it.
Yes.
And it's actually Arlo Parks.
Okay.
Yes, as we discovered yesterday.
That's okay. We make mistakes. Well, that's okay because this morning I really wanted to play for you Avenue B. And I have to probably look online because I think the band that my dot was trying to play was not the band I was thinking about because it didn't sound like I couldn't find that song that I heard, and it's the only song I heard from Avenue B because I think they're a band from another country, but I'm not sure. I don't know anything about this band except for that one song, and I don't even remember what it's called. I don't even know what it's called. That's the thing. It's a problem. But it was a cool song.
Yes, the music we heard this morning was...
It was not good.
No.
The singing was awful.
No.
The music was beautiful, but the singing was just terrible.
I got up at around 4:14 this morning. I watched some YouTube, started playing with the BBC Sounds app, and I discovered this show called Music Planet.
Yes.
They played this band I had never heard of called Vis-a-Vis.
Yes.
And they're really good. So when you got up this morning, well, first I fell back asleep around 7, and then we both got up around 9:11.
I did not wake up I don't even remember waking up at all. I must have been really exhausted because I did not remember waking up at all.
I played you some Vis-a-Vis.
It was good, and I saved it to my likes list.
Nice. You're starting to enjoy that, aren't you, babes?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I am. I'm really liking it. I'm glad you told me about it because had you not, I would have been like, "Oh, I like this song, but
what am I to do?"
Huh?
What am I to do?
What am I to do with it? Yes, but that's okay. That's okay.
That's how we learn.
We figured it out. I figured it out, and you figured it out.
Yes. Jaylo.
Yes.
We watched some Star Trek yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Certainly
did.
I probably wouldn't have gone that route had I spent more time thinking about it. So, as you know, I'm not a fan of the Ferengi episodes.
Yeah.
And by season 7, I just stopped watching them if it was in the description. But I saw that there was one that I hadn't seen, and I said, "Hey, should we watch this? Because I know you're a big fan of them."
Well, I mean, I like the lighthearted ones after watching a couple of heavy ones the day before.
It turns out this one was about the mirror universe, which you did not have any experience with.
No.
Do you want to give an overview of the episode, or would you like me to?
I think you should because I honestly think you're better at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quark is hanging out in the bar with Odo and looking at Ezri talking to Bashir.
Very jealous. Yes.
Yep. Eventually he goes back to his quarters. Ezri comes in the room and is, "What are you thinking? How could you portray me like that?" He's a little bit surprised. She puts on a recording of the Grand Nagus saying that he was trapped in the mirror universe, which of course I've known about the mirror universe since age 10, but this is your first experience.
Yes.
And he needed a cloak to get free because over there they don't have cloaking devices.
Yes.
Quark gets Rom to steal a cloak from Martok's ship, which I actually thought was kind of funny. They are about to send Ezri to the mirror universe. The Ezri from that world. Yeah. From that reality.
Yep.
But Martok and Sisko walk in and they look pissed. So Quark and Rom decide to join them.
Yeah.
It turns out that the Grand Nagus was conspiring with the Mirror Universe's Kira to get a cloaking device. Right? Mm-hmm. So they transport over there. There's some issues, people are upset, and eventually Worf, who is a bad guy in this episode, gets a hold of the cloaking device.
Mm-hmm.
He's working with Garrick, but they can't figure out how to install it, so they need Rom's help. By then, Kira has betrayed the Grand Nagus, so he's in the brig with Quark and them.
Mm-hmm. In the mirror universe.
Yes. Rom gets out, he helps install the thing, and they put him back in the brig. It turns out, because Rom is a engineer genius,
yep,
it blew the circuits on the ship as soon as they decloaked, so they don't have warp speed or weapons online.
Right.
And Smiley, who is O'Brien, and Bashir can attack Worf's ship and negotiate basically a surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah. A no-term surrender. Ezri transports the Nagus and Quark, along with Rom, back to the real universe after they go back to Deep Space Nine, and Rom sees Lita, who doesn't think she could be married to him. Mm-hmm. And the Grand Nagus says, I might go back there someday, and you guys are going to join me. And that's where the episode ends.
Yeah, and there's some other things in the episode that, that are minor details, but it was such a weird episode.
This is not my favorite episode.
I didn't really like it either. It was kind of weird, especially what was going on with Kira, Ezri, and Lita.
Because Kira and Ezri were kind of together in this episode.
Sort of, kind of. Not really, but kind of. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up enemies towards the end. Then I
told you, listen, I gotta show you an original episode of Star Trek.
And I think you should explain this, because I could not keep track of this, because obviously I did not... I wasn't really too familiar with the original series anyway, so...
I gotta be honest with you, this is not the way I would have introduced the show to you.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pertinent considering the episode we just watched. Uh-huh. And maybe I should have spent more time on it. Uh-huh. And in retrospect, what I should have told you to do is think of this like you're watching a mini movie.
Okay.
But
That's okay.
We live and we learn.
We live and learn, and we get loves.
Okay. I guess. I think you used that joke before.
I did. That's a part of the Love's commercial.
Oh my goodness.
For Love's diapers.
Oh
anyway.
My goodness. They're your favorite brand.
We digress.
Yes.
What?
Okay. Backstory on this. I've seen the original episode of the original series. It's called Mirror Mirror. I don't know. I'm guessing 15 to 20 times over the years. Mm-hmm. That could be a low estimate. Mm-hmm. Because I've been watching Star Trek since I was like 9 or 10 on a regular basis. Uh-huh. And I took time off, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So I know this episode really well. It's not my favorite from the original series, but it's up there. It's probably top 5.
But it was your favorite among your friends. So.
I know people who say that this is the best episode of Star Trek. Uh-huh. It's really good though. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know this episode really well. It starts off. There is a landing party consisting of Captain Kirk, Scotty, Dr. McCoy, who is also nicknamed Bones, mm-hmm. and Lieutenant Uhura. They're visiting this planet that has dilithium crystals, which we know is a power source for the Federation. They don't want to negotiate with the Federation. Mm-hmm. They think that, we're an evolved race. And if we give these dilithium crystals to you guys, you could possibly use this to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. And even one life would be too many for our people to take. And there's a scene right before they beam up where the leader of this race, and I forget their name, mm-hmm. says to the captain, you could always take this by force. And he responds, but we wouldn't do that, even if negotiations fail, mm-hmm. which I really like. Mm-hmm. So they beam up. There's a middle of a storm, and they get transported into this mirror universe, which is the universe we later see in Deep Space Nine, but that's like 100 years in the future. Mm-hmm. They get off the transporter pads, and Spock in this world has a beard, which he doesn't have in the mm-hmm. regular Star Trek series. Mm-hmm. Spock looks at the transporter device, then looks back at the chief who's running the thing and says, I need your agonizer.
Yeah.
And he basically socks this guy.
What's an agonizer?
We never see it anywhere else in the series. I'm assuming it's a device that you put on somebody to shock them and give them a whole bunch of pain.
Yeah.
Because the guy at one point is on the ground in agony.
Mm-hmm.
The captain says he's feeling a little bit uneasy and that maybe the doctor should look them over.
Yeah.
So they go to sickbay and realize that something is up. They're not quite sure what it is, but they think they're in an alternate reality. And they all just say, okay, we're going to have to play it cool by now. See what you guys can find out.
Mm-hmm.
First, Uhura goes to the bridge, and we find out that Sulu is really into her. He has the hots.
Yes.
And he's not afraid to show it. Captain comes on, communicates with the guy who has the lithium deposits, but from this universe. And he says, you have 12 hours. The guy says, it wouldn't matter if you gave us 12 millennia. We're not going to change it. And he says, 12 hours. Or else we're going to blow up your second biggest city. He ends communications. The Spock from this universe says, Captain, that's weird. We shouldn't give them that much time. What are you thinking? That we should just, kill them and I'm going to have to write you up in a report. And he's like, I know. I have my reasons. Goes on to the turbo lift. Traveling, gets off, and Chekhov, along with some other crewmen, attack him and try to kill the captain, because that's how you move up in rank. A guard comes out, I don't think he's an officer yet, and he vaporizes some of the guys and takes Chekhov to this torture booth.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember the order right, and I know I should considering how many times I've seen this episode, the captain is then kind of walking around. He goes back to sickbay. Scotty's there, and they're talking about their plans. And they basically said, okay, Scotty, you and McCoy, who's the doctor, are going to have to go and work on this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor was upset because people on his staff were betting on how much pain somebody could take.
Wow.
Yes. And the captain's walking with Spock. Spock tells him that he's a man of science and that he would like to be captain, but it's not his main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Captain sees Chekhov being tortured and says that's enough.
Yep.
He enters his room and he has a girl there.
Yeah.
I think her name is Marlena.
Marlena, yeah.
Marlena. And I'm horrible with names. But
I think it's Marlena, yeah.
Yeah, and she's just lying on his bed. They make out a little bit. And we see that the captain has this... Well, first, before then, Spock reaches out to the captain and says, listen, Jim, I have these orders from Starfleet Command. I could be thrown out of the Federation for telling you this, but they say, if you don't carry out your orders within 4 hours, I have to kill you and take command of the ship.
Uh-huh.
So then Marlena shows Kirk this device that he supposedly found years ago from some unknown alien scientist that will allow you to monitor somebody's movements and basically make them disappear into nothingness. Mm. He goes off and says, don't use this on Spock. She then uses the device to follow Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to the sickbay and to meet up with everybody. Mm-hmm. By this point, Uhura has distracted Sulu because Scotty needed to patch something into the main power lines that he would have seen. Sulu goes down with a group of guys meant to kill the captain. Mm-hmm. And Marlena incinerates some of them. Spock comes there. He's fighting them, and Kirk hits him over the head with something. McCoy says, I gotta help him or he's gonna die. Go to the transport room. I'll be there soon. Spock does a mind meld and finds out everything that went on. He goes there and says, I'm gonna transport you guys back to your universe so I can get my captain back. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite scene in the entire episode. Right before Captain Kirk goes on the transporter pad, he gives a speech about how, one man can change things for the present, and do you really think the Empire could last? And in my quarters, there's a device that'll make you super powerful. Mm-hmm. You and Marlena should use it. Not in those words, but basically. And then he goes back to his universe. Mm-hmm. And they're talking on the bridge. We see the Marlena from the regular Star Trek universe who's just transferred on board the ship. And the captain kind of looks at her. And that's the end of the episode.
Well.
There's some things I left out. Like there's this great scene where we see what their counterparts are doing in the regular universe, and Spock throws them in the brig. I really like that scene a lot too.
Oh.
I'm curious.
Yes.
I know it was confusing, but overall,
Very
did you like this or no?
I did like it. I would have rather have seen something else that was leading up to the mirror universe.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I cannot keep track of this. I'm going to keep it up. I'm going to leave it up to him to explain this because I can't explain it.
Does my explanation now make it a better episode to you?
I think so, but I would have to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I would have to watch something that would be leading up to it because I'm like, huh? This is confusing.
I'm thinking maybe next week we should watch The City on the Edge of Forever, which I've been talking to you about for a long time.
I think you have told me about that, yes.
That episode guest stars Joan Collins, of all people.
Wow.
Yes.
Joan Collins of Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Of Dynasty fame.
She plays Edith Keeler.
Okay.
Yes. Who must die.
Who must die.
You will find out about that soon enough.
She must die. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Would it have helped if I would have told you going in, look at this as a mini movie?
I think it would have been helpful, but that's okay. I mean, we live and learn.
I love Deep Space Nine, as you know.
Yes. And I'm really liking it as much as you are.
Yes. But I think that they go to the mirror universe a little bit too much. They never did it in The Next Generation.
Yeah.
They only did it in that one episode of the original series. And DS9 does it like 5 or 6 different times.
Mm.
I think the first time it was really cool, and then it became overkill.
Is that the one that you didn't show me where they go into the mirror universe and a woman that's supposed to be Jen is there?
Yes. There's like 2 episodes involving her.
Okay. But you said you like those, right?
I like them, but again, one of the reasons I didn't show you that is because it required the context of watching the original series.
Oh, okay.
To kind of get it.
Okay, yeah. I understand that.
There's this great book I've read by David Mack, who helped create the Vanguard series, which are books that are basically kind of like the DS9 based in the original Star Trek time period of Captain Kirk. It's not DS9, but it's like based on the space station, and there's a lot of intrigue there.
Yeah.
But he wrote this book called Empire of Sorrows, which kind of chronicles Spock from the Mirror Universe after our Captain Kirk leaves it.
Oh, wow.
And what he goes through. It's really good, too. I've read it 2 or 3 times, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're happy with that one?
I think it's a great book. I really enjoyed that book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But that was like a book that was based on the series, and
yeah, and it's really well done. I would actually like to see some sort of movie based on that. But obviously, you need different actors.
I know this is sort of a Star Trek thing, but wasn't there like a Star Trek movie that was coming out, but the person who played Chekhov died?
Yes, there was.
Yeah, I remember that. That was like a few years ago.
It was, I believe, an automobile accident. He was at his house, and I don't think I could have the song.
And it like backed up over him, right?
Yeah, something like that.
It was really horrible, and he was a young guy.
He was only like 26, I think.
So sad, and he played Chekhov.
Yes, he did.
It was very sad. Was Chekhov supposed to be like a Russian? Not Russian.
He was. He was a Russian ensign on the TV show, which is really incredible when you think about this was the 1960s, and there was a space race between the U.S. and Russia. That's one of the reasons I think this show is so great, is because there was real diversity on it.
Right, and yeah, because I just thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute, I remember the name Chekhov. And then I realized, oh, wasn't there like a really young guy on one of the Star Trek movies that was out like a few years ago, and he died tragically in an automobile accident when his car hit him or something? Yeah, it's terrible.
Would you ever consider reading Empire of Sorrows?
I would have to watch more Star Trek stuff with you before reading it. Okay. Because I don't understand it.
That's fair.
I wouldn't understand it.
That's right. And at some point, then we might revisit Mirror Mirror, just because to me, rewatching it again last night, it held up.
Yeah. Okay.
It was still a great episode.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I wish I would have giving you more to go with before we jump straight into
I
it.
was very confused. I didn't know, and but it's okay. I mean,
there are things about it you like, though.
I did. I thought it was. I mean, being that I watched the more modern DS9 with that episode, at least I knew what to expect going into that one, but I still was confused.
The episode of the original series we watched last night is probably 31 or 32 years older than the DS9 one.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 But I understand why why a lot of people like the original series.
Yeah, let me rephrase that because I don't know if I did it right.
Yes.
The Mirror Mirror came out, I want to say, in 67.
Mm-hmm.
And the DS9 episode we watched, I think, may have came out in late 98 or early 99 of the Mirror episode.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a big leap in technology and thinking.
Crazy.
There's a real interesting episode of DS9. I think I've told you this, where they kind of redo an original series episode. They go back and they see the old crew. Have I told you about this?
I don't think so.
Okay, so there's an episode from the original show called The Trouble with Tribbles. Mm-hmm. And in the DS9, and it's considered one of the best episodes of the original series, even though there's a lot of humor in it.
Oh, okay.
And in DS9, there's like a time warp accident, and they go back to the time of The Trouble with Tribbles.
Oh, really?
And they're basically trying to stay conspicuous while the original episode is unfolding.
Really?
So they kind of merge the two shows. Okay. It's not my favorite episode.
Yeah.
But I think it might even be after we finish DS9 and watch some of the original series. I'll show you the DS9 version of that episode.
Of The Trouble with Tribbles?
Yes.
What is Tribbles?
Tribbles are these little creatures that make this beautiful sound. They're very friendly. The only thing is they breed out of control. Because they're self-breeding, so they don't need another Tribble to procreate.
So they're kind of like rabbits.
Yes. Very friendly, very nice to humans, but they
make beautiful music.
They just go dun, 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 dun.
And there's supposed to be beautiful noises.
Yeah, but if you bought one today, you'd have 20 by tomorrow.
Oh, jeez, like Gremlins.
Yes.
Like Gremlins. Mm-hmm. Oh, that reminds me. I know that. I remember in the Goonie reference. Remember in the Goonies where Chunk calls up the police station?
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, like the one time when you told me that there were these creatures and if you put them in water, they multiply. I thought that was great because it was a Gremlins reference.
I've seen the Gremlins, but it was so long ago. I remember there was like a cool car in it. But I think I was a little kid when I saw it.
Yeah, and Gremlin, and my favorite Gremlin was Gizmo. He was the nicer Gremlin. But they multiplied, and there was all of these Gremlins, but some of them were evil Gremlins.
But then you had Gizmo Gremlin.
Gizmo was a nice Gremlin.
Nice.
Yes. But I do remember that movie. I thought that was a really funny reference because I think Gremlins came out around the same time as the Goonies.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah. I have to go back and look up Gremlins because I vaguely remember the movie, but it was definitely a popular movie in the 80s. But anyway, I digress.
You digress, but it's okay. That's what we're here to do, babes.
Yes, we digress a lot.
Yes. Alana.
Yes.
After we watched Mirror Mirror.
Yes.
You told me you wanted to take a short nap.
And it didn't happen because I really could not go to sleep as much as I wanted to because I was kind of falling asleep during the original series a little bit. I was feeling a little tired.
In the back of my mind, I'm now worried that you're going to fall asleep during the films that we watched last night. But you didn't do that.
I did not.
Which is great.
Go to sleep because I really wanted to see that.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not.
So I made us some paninis.
Yeah, it was really good. I'm glad that we decided to bake them.
Yeah.
Because then it would have saved us a lot of trouble of flipping them over.
Yes.
Are you going to, now that you've done that in my oven, are you going to do that with your oven?
No, because the Foreman grill works so much better.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you have a Foreman grill.
Yeah, that's why I don't flip anything, is because I just love my Foreman.
And I'm seriously considering getting one.
Honestly, I would get a food processor before the grill.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Well, I just don't imagine myself using food processors very much
Think of it
right now.
Think of it like this, babes. You can make better hummus than we had last night in a food processor.
Mm.
You could make your own bread.
Mm-hmm.
You could do sauces. I don't know. Well, you know that I'm an evangelist for the food processor.
Evangelist?
So. Yes. I go knock on people's door, and I'm like, brother, have you ever thought what a food processor could do for you?
I don't know if I'd call you an evangelist. I would definitely call you a what should I say? Like I would say that you could probably be one of those people on food processor infomercials.
Right. I could read from the book of recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And watch as you can make cheesecake filling right within your food processor.
You can. It's very easy.
Yes.
Yes.
Watch as this food processor takes cinnamon roll dough and makes it and forms it into dough. Look at this.
You could do it. I've done cinnamon roll. Okay. But I see what you're saying.
Yes. You know what I mean? Because I tried to do that. I did that on my own counter, and that was really time consuming.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I do it partially in the food processor. Then I take it out and I knead it a little bit more. But you don't need to know that, Jaylo.
Well, I figured you did that anyway.
Yes. It's a great device. But the Foreman grill is good too.
Yes.
I was going to buy you a cast iron skillet.
Mm-hmm.
However, you said your mom might get you one.
No, she was thinking about getting me an electric skillet. Oh. Which I think would be really good too, because I wouldn't have to worry about using a pan for certain things.
Yeah, but why do you worry about using a pan now, though?
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, I could cook stuff in it.
Right, but you can cook stuff in a pan too.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Worry about your own kitchen, dear.
Okay, babes, I'm just saying. Oh my goodness.
This is not your kitchen.
I know, babes.
This is mine.
I know, babes. Jaylo.
Yes.
I showed you 2 films last night. Did I tell you the story about how I saw Before Sunrise? I can't remember if I did or
No,
not.
I don't think so.
Okay. If I did, then I'm repeating myself.
It's okay. We repeat ourselves. We've repeated ourselves more than once, so.
I asked Alana as a barometer. If she would have said yes, then I wouldn't say it here.
Okay.
It's June of 1996. The movie Eraser, I think, was just about to come out or just come out the previous weekend. Mm-hmm. I was out of school, and I stayed up late one night. I'm flipping through the channels, and I hit Cinemax, which anybody who knows Cinemax and late night...
Yeah, they play some pretty weird stuff.
As a teenager, it was a lot of fun, but...
I would imagine. I didn't watch Cinemax when I was a kid a lot.
So what Cinemax would do, and they might, I don't know how they do it now, they would announce the movie that was coming out. So they'd say, this person in so-and-so coming up next. Mm-hmm. And I flipped on the channel right as they were doing that for this movie called Before Sunrise. I just happened to have a videotape in the VCR because back then I liked to record everything I could.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I pressed record thinking, okay, I'll watch this for 5 minutes, then I'll go to sleep, and maybe I'll revisit it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I ended up watching the entire movie and being blown away. Mm-hmm. I think since then I've revisited 2 or 3 other times before last night. Mm-hmm. And have really enjoyed the experience of spending time with these characters. Mm. What do you think of this film? So do you want me to give a brief description?
Yes, go ahead.
With this film, it's oddly a little bit harder than others because most of it is talking.
Yes.
So in some sense, you would think that would be easier. But in another way, it's harder because there's not much action. But
no. Basic
premise is, well, I know how I want to start this. When the movie starts, Julie Delphi, whose character's name is... You know I suck at this stuff.
Her name is Celine.
Celine is on this train reading a book. This couple that's next to her gets into a huge fight.
And they're arguing in German.
Yes. She gets up and sits across from Ethan Hawke, yes, who asks, well, what were they fighting about? They start to have a discussion about books and everything. Eventually he says, why don't we go to the dining room and eat and continue this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They do that. We find out that he's an American who was visiting Europe and is about to go home tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just been riding the Eurail for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and really enjoying it.
Yes.
Looking out the window and all that.
His stop comes up, and I forgot the name of the city he was
Vienna.
in. Vienna. I should have known that.
He went to he after he has this interesting conversation with Celine.
Yes.
And his name is Jesse, by the way.
Jesse.
Yes.
He gets off the train, stops and thinks for a second, and runs back on. And Jesse tells her, listen, I know this is going to sound odd. You weren't planning to stop here. But what if you came off with me and we spent the night together? He explains to her that this could be good for her future husband. Because if you don't do this, you're going to think about all the guys
that you could have been with.
That you weren't in 20 years from now. But if you come with me today, you'll know that I'm just as boring as all those other guys. And your husband will benefit. Yeah. She laughs for a second, then decides to join him.
Weird logic there, but okay.
Yes. They have all these experiences. At one point early on, they're walking across this bridge, and they start a conversation with these two guys who are doing a play.
A weird play with one of the guys dressing up as a cow.
And side note, I like that they don't go to the play and they never revisit this, because most movies would just be like, this would be a pivotal scene in the movie.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And
I wanted to kind of know what happened, but
it's more real to me that they didn't go to the play.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
But it was just so weird that these two random guys would say, yes, you should come to our play, and there's a cow in it, and I dress up as a cow, and I dress up in a cow costume.
Mm-hmm.
The guy did.
There's a scene where they're listening to this music in a...
Might have been a club.
No.
Right?
It's at a record store. There's like...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
A music booth or listening booth that they go into to listen to vinyl.
And I thought that would have been a really, really cool thing to do.
Yeah. People have done it. I have not.
Yeah. That would have been a really cool thing to do on a date, I think.
Yes. At one point, they go to this grave, and I thought this was a cool scene. Celine shows one of the graves to Jesse and explains this girl died at age 13.
Yeah.
And that was the age I was when I first came here.
Yeah.
Now I'm 10 years older, and she's still 13.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
It's really weird. There's so much to talk about, but yet there isn't, because there's little action. So that's why I'm giving like random scenes.
And these graves, you told me that these graves are actually in a public park, right?
That's what it looked like to me.
Okay.
Because they just walk in and there's
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look like there's any real security.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, it's now later on, nighttime, they're walking around the city. They run into a guy who says, I need money, but why don't I write you a poem? And if you guys like it, you can pay me. If you don't, then don't worry about it.
And I need a word.
Yeah, and they tell him the word milkshake. Yeah. So they go off talking. Then he comes up, reads his poem, and they give him some money. Mm. There's another scene, I think, slightly earlier, where a palm reader comes up, reads Julie Delphi's hand, then takes a quick look at Jesse and is like, it's just something, I forgot what it is, but it's kind of like blowing him off in a way. And then she kind of like walks away and gives a speech.
And then Jesse was like, yeah, I didn't believe a word she said, What if she said something like, you have no new thoughts, you did it, and you pay all this money? Can you imagine if she said the exact opposite? You're not going anywhere. You have no new thoughts. You're not going to travel. And then it was funny because they were kind of joking, like, he said, you totally believe what she said. She's like, yeah, but I mean, she said that, we were strangers meeting. And it was really funny how they were kind of going back and forth about this weird palm reader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They eventually end up at this bar. I love this scene, and I don't know why I do, but I really enjoy it. It's closer to the end of the movie, and Ethan Hawke is instructed to get a glass of wine. Talks to the bartender, and he says, listen, this is going to sound weird. I'm only spending one night with this girl. See that girl over there? She's beautiful. and I need a bottle of red wine. The problem is I don't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give me the address to this place, I will send you the money for the bottle of wine.
Yep.
When I'm watching this as a kid, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I have throughout the movie. I keep thinking, are they going to get robbed? Is somebody going to come over and, out talk Ethan Hawke and take the girl away from him?
I thought he was going to demand money right now because that bottle of wine is expensive.
That's what I was thinking. And the guy looks at him and he's like, you will send me the money? And he's like, yes. And then they shake on it. The guy gives him the bottle of wine. He's like,
wow,
thank you very much.
That wouldn't happen in real life.
I don't know.
Maybe it would, but I just don't think it would.
I think it's a little bit unrealistic, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
So then they go and they lie in the park. And I really like the conversation they had.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole movie is basically one long conversation, if you think about it.
Yeah.
He wants to have sex. She doesn't. They accept it. And they've sort of had the agreement this entire time that this is going to be their only night together.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we see the sunrise. They talk a few more times. There's one scene where she has her head in his lap. And there's more scenes of them walking. Eventually, they get to the train station. She's going one way. He's headed towards the airport. She's about to get on her train. He goes away, then he rushes back and he's like, I don't want to do this. I want to see you.
I want to see you again. And then she's like, okay. They decide, okay, 6 months. Today is, and then he says what the
June 19th.
June 19th.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, we're going to meet the same day, but 6 months later.
Yeah, 6 months from last night.
6 months from last
night. And we're going to meet at 6 at night. And he's like, listen, you better be here because for you, it's a train ride. For me, I have to fly back from the States.
Yeah, that's right.
They kiss and go about their way. I was blown away when I saw this film as a teenager. Could you see a young me enjoying this or no? Are you surprised to hear that?
I'm a little bit surprised only because I would have thought that when you were a teenager you would have been like, well, what happens after that? How come they're not showing anything more?
I wondered about that, but I really enjoyed the story and getting to know these characters.
Yeah.
And it was so different because, again, the stereotypical thing would have been something more would have happened in this film. Whether they ran into one of her ex-boyfriends or somebody tried to mug them or they go to the play and one of them gets into acting because of it.
Or, like, remember when she was pretending to call her friend? Like, they were having this conversation, like, what if you called your friend? What if I called my friend?
That's a great scene.
And I thought, what if they did call their friend?
And they would have shown it on the camera.
Yeah. What if they would have actually called their friend and said, hey, I can't make it, blah, blah, blah.
Or a typical Hollywood film would have at least had a more definite ending of he gets on the train with her or she goes to the airport to move to America with him.
Right,
I really like that this movie surprised me in so many places as a teenager.
And they go one way, but it's implied that they're going to meet in the middle again.
There's some ambiguity whether or not they had sex that night. I choose to believe that they just made out and never consummated the relationship.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I think so too. And I like that they didn't just go for it. Because, in Hollywood movies, they would have gone a different way and they would have totally slept together. But I'm glad that they didn't go. I'm assuming that they didn't go for it and they decided to keep this this moment the way it is, and maybe they did that in the sequel. I don't know.
If this movie was a stereotypical Hollywood film with a bigger budget, and I know Ethan Hawke had done some stuff before this, but he wasn't a huge star.
Yeah.
It would have been a completely different film, and I don't think it would have been a film that we would discuss today.
No, I think you're right. Because if it were a Hollywood movie, they would have gone to a hotel, or she would have gone with him back to America, or maybe they would have stayed in Vienna like another day.
They definitely would have ended up together in some way.
Yeah.
And a big event would have happened that night.
Yeah.
And we would have seen them go to that play.
But I'm glad that they kept it the way it was.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was, because it keeps people guessing, like, oh, what would have happened? What would have happened if she would have stayed there another day, or he would have stayed there another day, or she wouldn't have gone back to Paris?
The only problem I have with this movie,
Yeah.
and it may be me being a little bit too judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
because normally I would ask you, well, what do you think happened to these characters?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that point is a little bit mute because they did make 2 sequels to this movie, even though I have not seen them.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to see sequels to this movie.
I keep hearing great things about them, though.
Okay.
And that makes me think that at some point I do need to sit down and watch them.
Well, yeah, because you might like them.
I might.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you give this film on the scale from 1 to 10? To me, it's like an 8.
I think I give it a 7.
Okay.
That's fair?
That's fair. It's your choice.
I think I give it a 7. It's definitely not a bad movie, but I don't know if that is my favorite one, but I would definitely give it a 7.
But you were glad that you watched it.
Yes.
Would you recommend it to anybody?
I would. It's definitely an obscure movie, and a lot of people don't talk about it. At least I never heard anyone talk about it except for you.
I think more people are starting to just because of the sequels. And also that Ethan Hawke went on to become not a huge star after this, but people know who he is now.
Of course, yes.
You know.
Of course. And he was much younger.
Yes.
In this movie.
Would you recommend this to any family members of yours?
Probably. I mean, sometimes my relatives will watch like obscure stuff that we might find really interesting. So, yeah.
What did you think of my description of the film? I know it was sparse, but again, because of all the talking, it does make it oddly enough more difficult to describe.
Well, I was expecting it to be like your typical romantic movie where they meet, they end up together, they decide to go to a place, whether it was hers or his place, have sex, and then never see each other the next day.
That's what you were expecting before we actually watched
I thought there was going to be some sex involved. I'm like, oh, great.
But you were surprised then when you saw this film.
I was very
And knowing
surprised.
that I loved this movie as a teenager.
I was very surprised that even though sex came up, it never happened.
Yeah.
I was very surprised. I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a typical romantic.
Some people will say it may have happened because the night scene ends with them making out. But because of the conversation before then, I believe that they did not have sex.
And I'm glad they didn't because in a Hollywood movie, like you said, if it was like a big budgeted movie, they probably would have.
Is there anything that I left out of my description that you would like to add?
No, because the other things were just like minor details that you would have to see it to understand. Like there was a scene with the carnival,
where they kiss for the first time.
Yeah, and then and then they talk about the Ferris wheel, right? And,
yeah,
and they see like I don't know if they were on it.
No, they weren't.
They weren't on it, okay, but you pass by the carnival and there's all these rides and these kids and which were minor details, but I think you pretty much gave it a really good description and yeah, see it for yourself.
It's a small film with some really oddly enough big ideas in it.
I will say this because
ahead.
I know that you do a lot of analysis on the realism, and there are times where I've been on you about you analyze this way too much. But I will say that their conversations seem more real than some conversations that I've seen in romantic movies.
And I think that's another reason that the film resonated with me so much. Because not only was I surprised that more didn't really happen, but they seem like real people.
They seem
you
like
could
they
imagine
are
these
real
people
couple.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
And then there are some romantic movies that I've watched that they seem like a real couple too. But this one, it seems like, they could be like the average couple walking in Europe. The
guy that Ethan Hawke plays, Jesse, he reminds me of somebody that I know in real life.
What I thought was really interesting about Jesse, though, is every time she would talk about something emotional, like loving somebody.
Yes.
He kind of avoided it.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
You know? And it's like, well, what's the matter? And I love that she was honest, like, I really want to love someone and to be loved because that's something that to really give your heart to somebody. That's something that I think is a wonderful thing.
And there's a scene where they're riding on public transit and he asks her, what pisses you off? And you expect her to say something like, guys who leave the toilet seat up.
Yeah.
But she talks about the fact that there's a war, 300 kilometers from here and nobody's really talking about it. The fact that our media tells us to believe this, it's like real stuff that she's discussing.
Yeah, real stuff, and that could even be applied today. Because I think about that stuff too.
In some ways, I do think the film is more relevant now.
Yeah,
even though it's a product of its time.
I think you're right, and I'm glad she mentions like really deep things. Like she seemed like a very deep person.
And the first time we see her, she's reading a book. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering how much of that was really thought out. Like, we're going to let you know in a way that she's a little bit deeper than your average 23-year-old.
Yeah, I don't think she was 23 in the movie. She probably might have been older than that.
She was older in real life, but in the movie she's 23 because she says that at one point.
What I think Jesse, I would have loved to have seen him go deeper with his emotions because it seemed like he was more on the surface. Like, and then he talked about his ex-girlfriend. And he said, well, you know, I said I love them and I said I loved her, but I didn't really love her. But maybe he did.
Yeah.
And he just didn't want to go there because it was too painful.
Do you think that with the Celine character, we are seeing a deep 23-year-old, or is that representation of the average European woman? Because people always say that people from Europe read more and are more well-informed than we are. I don't know if that's true or not.
It could be both. It could be because of her time, you know, what was happening around her, that she was seeing more stuff. It could be just her. It could be just her and what she's observed in her life and what she realized, what she's realizing what she really wants. Yes. It could just be her, and maybe she had an old soul. Her soul was older than her age.
Nice.
And that's I've met some 20-somethings that are just like that. Like,
yeah.
I've seen a lot. I know a lot because I read a lot. And I have an older soul. So it could have been either one of those things.
Yes.
But I do think that Jesse seemed like the typical 20-something-year guy that's still trying to figure out what he wants.
Yeah.
But on the surface.
Very good.
And hopefully in the sequels, if he is in the sequels,
he
would have gotten...
I think he helped write the sequels too.
Oh, really?
That's a rumor I heard. I don't know if that's true.
Well, I would hope that in the sequels, he becomes a little more of a deeper man than he was portrayed in the original movie.
I was even contemplating throwing on my headphones this morning when I woke up before you and watching one of the sequels, but I'm like, no, I need to have a little bit more distance than that before I can watch the follow-up films. Yes. Is there anything else you want to say about this movie?
It really makes you think. It really does. Of course, there were some things that I didn't agree with what they said, but that's just because, you know, that's just a movie, though.
Yeah.
You know, of course, I'm not going to agree with whatever they say all the time. And I mean, I don't know how an average European woman thinks, but it really does make you think about stuff. And I'm glad that she did bring up some deep things that maybe people may not have thought of.
Nice. Great movie. Definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Alana, I'm curious. Have you ever recommended a movie to one of your friends or relatives that I've shown you?
Recently?
We've only really started watching movies together in the past 8 months, so. Right.
I don't know that I have.
Okay.
I can't really... I can't think of anything that doesn't mean that I won't. I just haven't.
I was just curious about that.
I don't think so, but that doesn't mean that I won't. Yeah.
Very good, babes. Very good.
Yes.
We watched another collaboration between Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke that came out
and Ethan Hawke
a lot later.
Did Ethan help write this script? That would be kind of cool, actually.
I don't even know how this movie was written. Because the typical Hollywood thing is somebody will write a script, another person will adapt it, and then maybe another person will take a shot at it.
Yeah.
They'll start shooting the movie, and then actors will add a few lines here and there, and then the director will edit it. But this movie is so different.
It's so different.
I would actually like to know how it was written.
Yeah.
My suspicion is that he contributed something to it, but I don't know the full extent of that.
And I think it's so interesting to see Ethan Hawke in a totally different role than the role that he was playing in Before Sunrise.
Because he was just a young guy in his 20s, and when we watch him in Boyhood, he's a dad.
And he's trying to figure stuff out because he's... Well, anyway.
Do you want to give the description, or would you?
I'll try. I'll give a little bit of a description.
Yeah.
So the reason why this movie is so unique to me and to you is that they use the same kids over a span of 11 years?
I think it's that.
12 years?
I think it's 11 or 12 years.
Yeah. And so you see the two main characters, the two main kids, Mason and Samantha, pretty much grow up before your eyes.
I think it starts when he's 8 and ends when he's either 18 or 19. So 10 or 11 years.
Yeah, and all packed in a 2.5 hour movie, which I thought was really, really cool. Patricia Arquette plays their mother, who I think she is getting ready to move to Texas because she's going to school to be a psychology teacher, I think it is.
And she wants to be closer to her mom.
And she wants to be closer to her mom. They're upset.
This is near the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, it starts with that. They're upset. I don't know where they're moving from. Do you know?
I know that they're driving,
yeah.
So I'm assuming it's somewhat close, but I don't remember. If they said it just didn't stick with me.
Yeah. And, Samantha is more upset than Mason that they're moving. And so they get in the car, they get out of there, they move to Texas. She goes to school to study psychology. She takes Mason with him. I might be skipping around. You can skip. There's
so much to cover, and we may when we talk about it after you do your recap, I might fill in a few things, just because this is one of those movies I understand where you leave stuff out because there's so much to cover.
Yeah,
yeah.
She takes Mason to school with her because he's not feeling very good. Introduces him to her college professor, who seems very nice in the beginning. And I don't know what happens, but somewhere along the way, it turns out that they get married. Did you want to fill in that gap?
I understand why you don't know what happens, because before the marriage, that's the only scene we see the character Bill in, is in the classroom. What Linklater does, which I think is brilliant, but can be frustrating at sometimes, and he does this a little bit in Before Sunrise too, is he lets us fill in the blank as the audience of what was their relationship like. Like, he gives us a clue that they kind of like have this back and forth in the classroom, and then he brings it forward to where they're married.
And it's implied that they probably had some time in between the time that she was in his class.
I'm guessing about a year, if I were to assume.
Right, which I didn't even think that she would marry this guy, but what do I know? And it shows
it just so you help you.
Yes.
It was a shock when I saw it.
I was like, what? Time. I said, they're together? How do they end up together? Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, I know what I know you would think that. And so, right after that, it shows them after they got married, the kids are settling in, everything seems fine. But then you notice some things about Bill. He's very, he's very much on to Mason for not doing his chores, and also to his kids.
And Samantha, too, to be fair.
And Samantha. So he's really on to them, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know about this guy. He seems like a tyrant already. And then you notice that he gets really upset when he's teaching these kids how to golf.
Yes.
And he gets upset when he misses the hole, and he ends up drinking a lot. You notice that he's drinking more than what he should be drinking. There's one scene where the kids go to the liquor store, which I wouldn't do that, and they're minors, but they tell the liquor store owner, our dad isn't feeling well. And
the guy looks out to the car, and the dad waves. He doesn't give the kids alcohol, but he gives them money for a check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the owner's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know him.
I know him.
We know him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he comes here all the time. So gives him money for the check and make sure that he gets his alcohol. Very disturbing scene much later where they're at the dinner table.
Oh my God, that's a hard scene
at
to
the
watch.
dinner table, and he says, I'm going to have a drink with my meal. Anybody okay with that? They're like, yeah, okay. And I already know what's probably going to happen. And he breaks stuff.
Tells Mason to clean it up.
And tells maybe I should go back a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because before that, you see Olivia, Patricia Arquette's character, on the garage floor. I don't know what happens.
Yeah, I'm assuming that he pushed her down there.
Yeah, and she's crying.
Mm-hmm.
She's crying, and she's like, "Oh, come on, get off of the floor, pull yourself together, right?" And she's upset, obviously, and she's like, she tells them, go in the house right now, because she doesn't want them to see her like that. And this is, of course, before the dinner scene where he breaks up stuff, and he's like, I hate squash, right?
Yeah.
But you already know it's not about the squash.
No, it's about him being an asshole, basically.
He's drinking.
Yeah.
He has a severe alcohol problem. The one scene that I'll never forget, besides the dinner scene, because that was really disturbing.
Yeah.
Was when Olivia, Patricia Arquette's character, is gone.
Oh, the scene with the phones.
Yes, and he says, and he's asking Samantha, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what did she say? She said she'll be back later. She says, stay in your rooms. I'll be back later. Doesn't tell them where she's going. And he's checking all their phones. Explain why he's checking their phones.
He wants to see if Liv has called anybody else.
Yeah.
And if so, what she's been saying to them.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
Yes, it is.
So, and as if she would actually go out of her way to use the children's phones.
Well, no, to call the kids.
I mean, to call the kids.
And the only one she's called is Samantha.
Right. So anyway, he gets upset, tells the kids to go in the car. I think that was when he goes to the liquor store.
Yes.
Yeah,
you're right. That's when he goes to the liquor store.
That's
okay. This is a hard movie to describe.
It is.
And that's when he writes the check. They come back, and then Patricia Arquette comes over with her friends.
With Carol.
Yeah.
And she says, Mason, Samantha, get in the car right now. And he says, they're not leaving. He's like, yes, we are. We're leaving. We're moving out. We're leaving you. And she says, kids, get in the car. And he's telling them to get upstairs. So the kids naturally would leave with the mom. They go to Carol's house. Carol and her daughter are taking care of them for a while until they get on their feet.
And the daughter's like a little kid at this point.
Yeah.
Samantha is upset because they have to change schools.
Yeah, and I would understand why. And she's like, I can't believe it. I mean, we don't even have new clothes. We don't even know these people. We're in a different county, and I can't believe you moved us over here. And I would be upset too.
And Samantha was also wondering what was going to happen to Bill's kids.
Right.
Too. But anyways, keep going.
And she's like, what happened to because we left this horrible person. And so they start a new school. Mason does not fit into this school. At least he doesn't fit in with a lot of the people there.
No.
They think he's a preppy or whatever. This one kid keeps bothering him for whatever reason. He meets that one girl. I don't know what her name is. I think it might have been Jewel or something.
Oh yeah, that's just a little bit later, but yeah, he meets her. Yeah, that's why it's hard to describe the movie.
It's hard to describe because there's so much in it.
And she's kind of interested in him.
She invites him over to this party.
Yeah,
but I don't think he goes.
I don't think he goes. But then he goes to that party with one of his other friends.
And this was around the time, and I'm glad you segued into it because this is around the time where Liv is having people over for Thanksgiving at her house.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Remember, because she asks him, can we go camping? Can I go camping with such and such? Because the house...
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I forgot what the kid's name is.
Yeah.
But it's one of his good friends.
Yeah.
And I don't think she knows anything about this house.
No.
I think she just thinks, oh, his family is done finishing this house.
And the scene really isn't that important when he goes over to the house. It's just kind of like guys talking like, teenagers
Talking like how they would talk in a locker room.
Or how I talk on a regular basis with Alana.
Do you?
No.
Not really.
No.
He's a lot more kinder.
I am.
But these kids were talking about just typical teenage boys, trying to, acting like they're, the 8th graders are underneath their wing, but they're really not. They're really not. They're just ragging on each other or whatever.
But then there's the Thanksgiving scene where people come over to Patricia Arquette's house.
And this is where we meet Jim.
Yes.
Jim is this vet. I'm guessing he's a young vet, right?
He is. Okay. I'm guessing like late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
He's probably going to school in the GI Bill.
And you told me, oh, watch out for this guy because you're going to see him later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So he comes back. It's obvious that he's probably taken drugs and drank, and Liv's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, were you drinking? Yeah, were you?
It's like,
probably.
And she kind of implies, were you smoking some, good stuff? And now he's 15.
Yeah.
Yes. By this time, we didn't really bring up Ethan Hawke's character, but he's kind of the dad who's the struggling musician and takes other gigs.
Not a very good one.
Likes to talk to the kids, take McCain signs off people's front lawn and replace them with Obama signs, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, I thought he was kind of a weirdo, but anyway. we anyway, there's some fighting words you said.
Yeah, I thought you didn't like McCain.
I don't like McCain.
So I don't like Obama.
Okay, but I didn't like either of them. But anyway, yeah. Taking some pot shots at people that didn't support Obama.
No, but the scene where they're taking the signs...
It was kind of funny, actually.
They had both. They had the nutty Republican, but then they also had the weird hippie girl who was in support of Obama.
That was really weird.
I thought it was a good mix, actually.
I will agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
They were both pretty weird.
They were. It represented the extreme on both sides.
That's a little odd. Anyway,
which is kind of odd because now Obama's hated by real lefties and McCain's hated by people on the right. But at the time, that's what they both represented when they were running for president. But in any event,
but Ethan Hawke, I think I will say this: even though Ethan Hawke was a struggling musician and not a very good one, but then he was also trying to figure out what to do on the side while he's struggling. I think he really tried to really be a dad to them because Bill was horrible. I mean, he was an alcoholic. He wasn't being a dad to them. Jim moves in. I'm guessing that he doesn't marry Liv.
I have very mixed feelings about Jim. I don't think he's all bad.
I don't think he's all bad, but I don't think he's all good either.
He's definitely not all good, but he's better than Bill by a long shot.
I will say this. I think for the short time he was in Mason's life, I think he was trying to get him straightened out because Mason really was the typical slacker teen.
Yeah, but you could kind of understand why. And also remember, Jim is the one who got Mason into photography.
Right, because of the camera.
Yeah.
But you can understand why Mason was like that?
Oh, yeah. He comes from this broken home, basically. His mom moves around a lot. She's with these abusive guys.
Not stable at all.
Not stable at all. He keeps making friends and having to leave him. In some ways, I feel like I was a little bit like Mason growing up. My mom never married an alcoholic. Well,
right.
Yeah. My mom never really got married.
Right.
I mean, her and my dad were common law, husband and wife, I think. But there was no official ceremony.
No.
My dad is an alcoholic, but he also does other things. So, alcohol is at least.
There wasn't, but in other words, it wasn't a stable environment for him.
Yeah, I kind of understand that.
Okay, I understand that too. And he's probably thinking, well, why are you telling me this? Because I came from a very unstable background. I didn't have a lot of structure and discipline. Mm-hmm. But what I liked was there were people in his life. I think. Hold on. I think maybe Jim tried to do it, but he didn't do it in the best way.
But he tried, though.
Yeah. And I think that his dad was trying to, even though he wasn't really stable himself.
Yeah.
He was trying to give them advice, like, later on in life especially.
So, I want to sort of get back to the movie,
Yes.
but I like these tangents too. On the morning of Mason's 15th birthday, his dad picks him up. We see that he has a new baby. And
with Annie, his stepmom.
Yep, who we kind of met in a bowling alley very briefly.
Yeah.
The kids go. Patricia Arquette briefly talks to this gardener, and we'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
They go off to Annie's parents' house.
Yeah.
They seem like nice people.
Yeah.
Mason gets a gun.
And a Bible.
And we also find out that this movie is a red letter Bible movie.
Yeah, but just for that one scene. And when they go to church, but that's just for this one scene. And I have some issues with that.
Okay, we'll get to that when we get to it. There's a scene though that I really like where Samantha, I think, is fishing. I could have it wrong because I'm blind. Mason's taking picture, and Ethan Hawke goes to talk to them, and he's like, "Hey, are you going to attend the baby's baptism in a couple of weeks?" I just like the little exchange that the three of them had in that scene.
Right.
I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scenes like that in the movie where it's just like, it's fun hearing these characters interact with each other.
Right. So it was interesting. Kind of seeing the, it sounds like they really get along with Annie's parents. They seem like really nice people.
And Annie seems like a nice lady. She's not the stereotypical stepmother, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it sounds like they she's really trying to get to know the kids. And I think at one time he has and this is later on, but he has an interaction with his former mother-in-law. And it sounds like they've come to terms with the fact that, okay, you're not my daughter's husband, but I'm glad you found somebody that's for you. That's really good for you.
Ethan Hawke and Liv's mom.
Right.
Yes.
But I digress.
We'll get there when we get there.
Anyway, it was interesting that it's interesting that how they interacted. And there were people in his life, like the person who was his boss. And the person that was his photography teacher, I think it was.
They both yell at Mason, basically saying, "You're not a hard worker, but you do have talent.
You have the talent, but you're not willing to do the hard work. You're not willing to do the work to get there." And the guy, I liked what the guy said. He said, in the restaurant.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what if this woman's like, well, I want this. He's like, well, Mason is trying.
And then but he ends up with, but I'm thinking about making you shorter to cook this time.
Yeah. And
you have to do a little bit more work though.
Yeah. He says, and what I love the statement. He's like, it's a lot more money. He says, I know you can handle the money, yes. but can you handle the responsibility?
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. I thought it was a great, statement because until then Mason was not held accountable for not doing his work and not going to classes, not finishing things, saying things like are you done, Mason? Not quite, not yet, but I will. Not quite, not yet, but I will, and I'm glad that he said, I believe in you, but you got to do the work. I know you can do the work, but you just have to do it. So you can get to where you want to go.
Around this time, Samantha goes off to college, and Mason takes his then girlfriend on a weekend trip.
Yeah.
What did you think about that aspect of the movie?
That was different.
That reminded me of many weekends in Boulder that I've spent. Just hanging out with friends and random people.
But then the weekend this happens after the weekend, right?
Where they break up? Yeah.
Where they break up, right?
Because she's seeing somebody else.
Yeah, he finds out that she was seeing this lacrosse player. It didn't sound like she really cared though about his feelings.
No.
Because he's like, well, it wasn't like I was with anybody else. And and it turned pretty sour after that weekend. And his dad was saying, you're going to meet a lot of women that are going to, and that are, you know, if you don't try to meet other people, then other women, like other girls like Sheena, would have come along and you wouldn't know it, or something like that. I think I'm miss.
He basically, this is after Mason's graduation party.
Yeah.
Says,
yeah,
listen, work on yourself, and the women will come.
right.
That's the gist of the speech.
And you're gonna
don't worry about this girl.
Yeah, don't worry about Sheena, because other women will come along.
The graduation scene was great. We see Carol's daughter is now 13.
Yeah.
Everybody's having a good time. There's a small exchange between Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette in the kitchen. And I like it because he's like, let me help out. After they talk for a minute. And then he opens his wallet and he's like, I gotta go get money.
And she's like, can you believe that our kids are, you know, have graduated high school, and they're not going away. And towards the end of the movie it was really interesting because Mason was getting ready to drive off to college.
Yeah, we're gonna get there soon.
We'll get there in a minute.
After that scene is the scene where Ethan Hawke takes Mason to go and see one of his friends do a sound check, and they have that exchange.
That was a really good scene.
Because that friend used to be Ethan Hawke's roommate.
Very
when the kids
messy
were little.
woman. A very messy roommate, I mean.
Yeah.
Yes. Very messy.
Patricia Arquette moves into a smaller apartment. Before then, right before then, the kids are eating at this restaurant, discussing life. Where are we going to sleep when we come back to visit you?
Yeah, where, you know, I do not want to share a room with him. And
I believe the assistant manager goes over to talk to the family. And what does he say?
He says, "Oh, you remember me? I'm that gardener that you talked to, and you told me that I should take some English classes and learn English, and I did. And not only that, I got my bachelor's, and I forgot what I went to community college. And I'm
going to get this other degree.
I'm going to get this other degree. I'm working on my bachelor's, and now I'm assistant manager here."
That, to me, that's a powerful
That's
scene.
awesome. And then she's like, you know, you should listen to her. She's a smart lady.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Okay, so I think it's right after then. Mason is helping his mom move in, and she starts to cry because he's about to leave to college.
And she says, you know, I feel like, what am I going to do next? Because I raised you kids. Samantha went to college, graduated from high school. You're graduating from high school. And I feel like I'm about ready to go to my funeral, because now she doesn't know what is my identity now that you guys are going to be out. But when I saw that scene, I was thinking, wait a minute, she has a lot more things to look forward to, because if they run off and get married, right? She's looking for, she doesn't realize that she has other things to look forward to besides sending her kids to college.
Yeah, but she's also kind of like about her in a sense.
She is about her. And I think in a way I was kind of like, well, think about what these kids are going to go through later on and what you have to look forward to. But maybe now she's thinking, I got to take care of me now. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I kind of understand that, because nobody took care of her when it came to these guys.
I hear you.
You know, but at the same time, I was thinking, well, what about these kids? I mean, they were moved around, shuffled around. Guys were coming in and out of their life. They didn't have, Mason didn't have a lot of discipline and structure until people came alongside of him and had to teach him about that. So I can kind of understand why the kids would probably, what may have been going on with Mason when she was talking to him about that.
Yeah.
What about me?
Mason eventually, though, goes off to college. He's been talking to his dorm mate online. They meet, and it seems like they connect very easily.
And then they get ready to go on this hike with these other two girls. One of them happens to be the roommate's girlfriend,
who is into dancing and teaching little kids how to dance.
And then he meets this other girl named Nicole as they're up on the mountain. It seems like they're really...
He meets another... no, that's the same girl.
No. Remember, his roommate's girlfriend is Barb.
Yes.
Okay?
But Barb brings Nicole to the dorm room.
That's what I mean.
But you said that he meets this other girl named Nicole up on the mountain.
Well, I'm sorry. I fast forwarded a little bit.
That's okay.
Barb introduces her to Nicole.
Introduces Mason to Nicole.
Introduces Mason to Nicole.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah. You know what I meant.
Okay. They go hiking.
And they're on the mountain. They're having a good time. Mason strikes up this conversation with Nicole. They seem like they're going to become friends, or maybe even more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at each other, and
the movie ends.
So we don't know what happens to these kids.
I think this is such an incredible movie because, I mean, there's the gimmicky aspect of it. You're watching the same people throughout it, but in a lesser director's hands, that could have gone horribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And also part of it too is he just got lucky that nobody too important died, right?
Right.
Or, nothing too weird happened.
And the kids' families were okay with them being in the movie for this. Well,
Samantha's family was always going to be okay with it because Richard Linklater's the dad.
That's right. Yeah.
But Mason, especially, the kid who played him, a lot of it was Richard Linklater got lucky, but a lot of it too is he's a great director.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the gimmicky aspect, the way the story was told of Mason growing up was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
This is an incredible film. And in most movies, you watch characters for a few hours and you kind of know them, and it's great. But then there are the special movies to where you really feel like you know Mason, Samantha, Liv. You feel like you know them.
Yeah, like you literally spent time
years
with
them.
You
spill, even though it's only a couple of hours.
Right.
So I think this is an amazing film, and I'm wondering, what do you think of it?
I think I would give it a little bit of a better score than Before Sunrise.
Yeah, I would give this film like an 8.5.
I would give it an 8.
Okay.
I don't know if it's my favorite one because there's just so many things in it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were disturbing scenes in it. I would recommend it to people. It's just a lot in there. It's a lot in there. But I definitely think it scores higher than Before Sunrise. I would give it an 8.
This is going to sound like a contradictory statement.
Okay.
The movie is 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a lot longer.
It does.
But it also doesn't feel boring either.
No, because it's not boring at all. There's so much in it. There's so much in it. And just knowing that the same kids are used in the movie makes it even more interesting. And the same characters are in there. It's.
What do you think happens to Liv after this story?
I think that she tries to make a life for herself without a man. I don't know about the apartment situation because I know that the kids want to visit her on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she spends time reflecting on not just what she wants for herself, but what her kids are going to experience in their future. I would hope so.
What was she good at as a mom? And then what were her downfalls as a parent?
Downfalls definitely, shuffling them from house to house, in different counties, bringing guys in there without really letting the kids know them, I'm guessing. Just kind of filling up that space with men.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously there was a void in her life that couldn't have been filled by men. Also, not considering the fact that, her kids have friends, right? Taking them away from their friends.
Yeah.
That was something that I was like, wow, she didn't even bother to check with them, like to talk to them about, I know that you want to keep your friends around, but the reason why we have to move is, she didn't go, and she just thought maybe, they'll get over it. But the good thing about her is that she was good at protecting these kids for how she could.
Oh, see, I don't know if I agree with you on that, but keep going.
Well, I mean, protecting them by moving them away, but I think she could have done a better job.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she was great at it, but she tried her best to protect these kids, as unstable as she was. I also think another thing that I thought she was good at more than that was when she talked to the gardener.
Yes.
Even if she was unstable with her own life, she thought about what could make his life better.
I think she's kind of saying it like flippantly. Oh, like you could go to night school. It's not that.
Flippantly, like she didn't really think about it?
Yeah, she just kind of said it. She's not trying to give him words of wisdom.
Yeah.
But he interprets it the way that he needs to become a better person.
And he made himself a better person even though she didn't think that, he would listen to her.
Yeah. I think that she is one of those people who is turned on by the idea of teaching somebody something.
Even though she can't teach herself.
Yeah, this is where I relate to her.
Okay.
Because I feel like I like to... Well, we had an incident last night. I think we can talk about this without going into specifics. When you were here allegedly not sleeping, a friend of mine had called me for advice. I won't go into it. And I came in here, thought I was going to wake you up, but you were already awake. And I was so happy because I thought my advice is going to, give him the strength he needs. So I relate to her on that level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's turned on by teaching other people, but she is really kind of like dismissive of her kids in a way. They're just kind of extensions of her and not their own individual
Right.
people.
Like she doesn't think of, and we don't really know much about how her life was growing up. Mm-hmm. We just know that her mother is really nice.
We never see or hear about her dad.
We never see or hear about her dad. It's possible her dad wasn't in her life. I think she could have tried much, much better. I don't see you as her though.
Because I don't have kids.
Well, you don't have kids, but you don't have, your personalities are different.
Yeah.
I'm
much more loose. She's kind of uptight in some ways that I'm not.
She's very uptight. But you don't seem as unstable as she is.
Thank you.
I don't think so.
Thank you.
I mean, you're not like
moving around.
You're not a drifter,
mm-hmm.
right? She's not a drifter, but she's taking her kids on this ride, and the kids don't know which way is up.
Yeah.
And I don't like that for the kids. I think she's good the way that she's teaching the other kids, right? In her or students in her college, how she's teaching them in college.
Yeah.
I like that scene. It seems like she knows it by the book.
She can teach somebody else, but maybe not
teach somebody else. And maybe
kids.
it's really the only thing she's good at is teaching somebody else, but not being able to keep herself afloat. And you said that you know people that are like that too, right? Where they can talk a good game.
Oh yeah.
To other people, but then when it comes to them, it's like forget it.
Like some people are teachers, and some people can teach and also do the thing that they're teaching.
Exactly. Yes.
It's weird. You would think that if you could teach something, you just know it instinctually. But a lot of people are just great at explaining things to other people in a way that inspires them.
Right.
Even though they can't do the thing that well.
Exactly.
I think that's another reason I relate to her. But so she's interesting.
But you're different than she is, though.
I am different, but I do relate to her on that level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does she ever get her life really together?
I would hope so, but maybe she doesn't. I would hope that she would spend time reflecting on how her life has been up until now, what she wants to do to better her own life, because it sounds like it's falling apart at the seams, especially when she has that little outburst with Mason when she's crying and she can't figure out what she's gonna do.
I would agree.
I would hope that she does figure out coping mechanisms for her life and how she can better her own self and find her identity, because until then it didn't seem like she knew who she was.
Let's talk a little bit about the men in her life.
Oh my goodness.
Starting with Ethan Hawke, and you know how bad I am with names, but he's Mason Senior.
Mason Senior, yes. Well, see, you're good with that.
This time it was easy to remember.
I didn't know it was Mason Senior until towards the graduation party.
Yes. What do you think of him?
Well, like I said in the beginning of this analysis, I think that he is looking back on his life and thinking, I really need to be a father to these kids, because until now I've been a struggling musician. I don't have a stable job. I want to see my kids more, but I also want to make sure that I impart wisdom on them, even though I made some mistakes. And I commend him for that.
I relate to a lot of people in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mason, Liv, and Mason Jr.
Mm-hmm.
I see aspects of myself in these characters. So, like, Ethan Hawke is the artist, and I relate to that. He's kind of the loose parent. He's also very liberal, and I don't know Liv's politics. I'm assuming she's somewhat, but
she could be.
But she's not like fully, she's
not like super left.
Yeah, but he's more to the left, and that's where I see myself, and I see myself as the artist type. Mason has a bad childhood and is always moving around. Mason Jr. is always moving around, and it's because of that it's hard for him to make friends. Mm-hmm. I relate to that. I relate to Liv being able to inspire people and teach them lessons. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult for me to do, but it's difficult for her to live the way that she teaches. And I relate to that. So I feel a kinship with these three characters. Okay. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, is there any character in this movie that you relate to? And if so, why?
That's a good question. I think in some ways I related to the young Samantha.
Tell me.
Now, I wasn't shuffled around from place to place, but I do remember that when I moved from my home in Hawaii, from my friends, my teachers, all my surroundings that I remembered 15 years, and then moving to a new state where there's a new climate. I was around family, but that didn't really make it quite a smooth transition. Okay. Yeah. I had no materials. I didn't know the teachers. I didn't make any friends yet, but I was able to adapt, but I was thinking to myself, what's going on here? Why am I even here? I know why I'm here, as far as the decision to be here, but I didn't make this choice. Mm-hmm. It wasn't my choice. If I had my own choice, I'd live in Hawaii with at least one of my parents. And the fact that this choice was made for me, I didn't like that. I feel like I just didn't have, I didn't have a say in it. And I think that's how she felt when they just switched schools for however many times it was.
There's 2 times in the movie where you can really, actually 3. There's when they're at the dinner table early on in the movie, and she's like, "No, Mom, we're not leaving.
We're not moving. Sorry, we're not moving."
There's slightly after that where they're leaving, and she's saying goodbye to everything. Mm-hmm. And Patricia Arquette is like, Samantha, you can say goodbye to that horseshit attitude you have. Which I could totally see a parent saying. And then there's when she starts the new school after they leave Bill's place. Right. Actually, you could say 4 times, but they kind of go...
I mean, my mother...
because there's the scene at the dinner table.
It wasn't... Okay, it wasn't treated that way. Mm. It was just treated like, well, this is something that we have to do because... And I'm not going to get into details because it's not... I'm not... But this is something that we have to do, and I think you'll like it. But it's just something that has to happen.
Usually when parents say, I think you'll like it, what they're saying is...
Well, they didn't say, they'll think... She didn't say it that way. I'm trying to cushion it.
Go ahead.
She didn't like dismiss my feelings about it, but she also thought that it was the best thing for us to do, for my sisters and I, because she didn't want us to go from home to home. And as much as hard as it was, she thought it would be better for us to be with a stable couple, which was my relatives. So I can't be angry at her for that, because that's how she felt she needed to fight for us in that way. And it turned out to be it turned out to be better for us than expected.
Nice.
But it took a while. I mean, towards the end of the year, I was making friends. And I was getting used to my teachers. But it was definitely an adjustment. So I guess in that way, I related to Samantha's character.
We'll go back to Liv's lovers in a minute, but since we are on the topics of Samantha,
Mm-hmm.
what did you think of her as she started to grow up?
I think she was starting to exhibit some Mason-like qualities. Remember when she was supposed to pick up Mason from school?
Yep.
And she's like, well, imagine my embarrassment to have my friend Gabby turn around and go to a middle school to pick Mason up. I don't want to be around my brother. I'm growing up. I have friends. I don't want to, I want to kind of slack off for me and not pick him up.
Let's examine this for a second.
Yeah.
Is it that she's exhibiting Mason-like qualities?
Well,
or is it that she's rubbing off on him? Because there's a scene early in the movie, the first time when they move, where Mason is painting the wall and she's just talking on the phone. Or is it that these are qualities that they're picking up from their parents, because their mom is always leaving things when it's difficult. The dad is also a slacker.
Well, maybe it's a little bit of both. I mean, I know Mason is younger than her.
Yeah.
But he's been exhibiting more of those qualities in a slacker. But maybe she got a little bit of that too. And you're probably right. Maybe they're exhibiting it from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
You could be right about that too. So it's not all Mason. It's not all Samantha. But it's a little bit of both, especially considering the example that their parents gave them.
What do you think she's like as an adult?
Maybe she's a little bit more responsible. I mean, I don't know. She could be a little bit more responsible now that she's seen it from her parents, and she might be like, well, I don't want to do what my parents did. And maybe Mason is the same way now that he's had a couple of men in his life that were trying to show him a better way to live. That would be better for his life.
Let's talk about Bill for a minute.
Oh, jeez. Do we have to talk about Bill? I do not like him.
They're doing a sequel to this movie called Boyhood. So.
I do not like him. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
That would be funny.
That would be funny. But we know like him. He has bad qualities.
I don't like him. Yes.
As a thought exercise, name me like 2 or 3 good qualities about Bill.
He seemed to be a really engaging professor. I'm guessing he's a psychology professor.
I don't know for sure, but that would be my assumption.
But that was one of Liv's professors.
Yes.
He seemed like a really engaging professor to the students, and in fact, there was that one scene where he made them laugh.
Yeah.
And when Liv introduced Mason to him, he seemed really genuinely like, oh, okay, that's your son. Very nice. That's great.
He was also trying to hit on the mom, too.
Yeah, he was.
Can I give you 3 good qualities about Bill?
Okay.
You kind of already named one. He's a very engaging teacher.
Yes.
He has passion for what he does, right?
Yes.
He's a breadwinner for his family, right?
Yes.
We could disagree about his alcoholism, but he brings home the bacon.
Yes.
And maybe he takes it a little bit too far, but he also is a disciplinarian, and kids need structure.
I would say that, yes, but the way that he did that, of course, because of his drinking, wasn't helping. Because of his lapse in judgment, was not helping him, because he had these angry outbursts. Wasn't helping them. But he could have been a wonderful disciplinarian without that. And it just got in the way. It got in the way. You didn't even see him wanting to even get help for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just got out of control.
I want to talk about Jim.
Ugh. I don't know much about Jim, though.
But from what you do know, I stated this earlier, I think there's more of a gray area with Jim. I don't think that he's a bad guy. I think that maybe he's seen some bad stuff and he was raised in a different environment.
Right.
But I get the sense from Jim that he really is doing the best that he can.
Well, you know, and especially since he notices that there's been some disrespect from the kids to their mom. But given the way that their mom was raising them, right? Because how unstable she was, it doesn't surprise me that they would be that disrespectful towards her. But I think he wanted to raise them, hey, you don't talk to your mother that way. Don't talk back to your mother. And I don't want to be like how your father is, because I've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, I did like what he said, that, you know, I don't want to be that guy that doesn't have a stable job, is struggling. I'm taking care of you, your mom, and your sister, and I'm paying the bills.
But he's saying that to put down Ethan Hawke.
He is saying to put down Ethan Hawke, but you have to think, you're probably right that he was raised in a time where fathers and husbands provided for their kids, or should provide for their kids.
Here's my take on Jim versus Bill.
Yeah.
I don't like Bill, but I respect some things about him.
Okay.
I don't like Jim, but I respect him as a man.
I understand that. And
you get the difference.
I get the difference for both men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't excuse a lot of their things, but you respect them for some other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are interesting characters.
They are very interesting characters.
I'm glad you would recommend this film to people.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more we could say, but in some ways, I like that things are unsaid. But is there any more thoughts you have about it?
No. I think we've pretty much covered a lot of the bases.
Well, here's another question I have, now that we're thinking about it.
Okay.
Going back to Bill for a second, what happens to his kids when Samantha, Mason, and Liv finally leave?
So we don't know what happens to the kids in the movie, but I will say I'm thinking that they probably get taken away from him.
See, that's weird because I don't think they do.
You don't think so?
There's a scene where Liv is explaining to Samantha that she called child services and their parents.
And the parent and the mom.
My assumption is they get taken away from him for a short time.
But they come back.
Yes.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah, we don't even know what happened to their mom. We don't even know if she's how around she is, which it doesn't seem like she is.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Because this film has a lot of unanswered questions. Like, how did the relationship between Liv and Bill grow? How did Liv and Jim actually break up?
Yeah, we don't even know that. We don't even know that.
And I said earlier that it's risky, but I like that Richard Linklater gives us these questions instead of force-feeding us an answer.
Yeah, because you never see Jim after that scene where he's putting down Mason Sr.
Yeah, I like that about him as a filmmaker, but how do you feel about it?
Oh, I forgot to mention something.
Go ahead.
Remember when she moves the kids for the first time that we see?
Yes.
And her boyfriend is another unstable person.
What? I don't even remember.
Remember, she comes back to the house and she's telling
yeah, you're right.
Right?
You're right. Yes.
And the boyfriend's like, no, I you can hang out with us. And he's like, no, I want to go do something with the guys. Is that okay?
I completely forgot about that.
And I forgot about that too, but he's another unstable person.
Mm-hmm.
And they're arguing about how this is about me and my kids. I have to take care of my kids.
And he's kind of saying you use your kids to justify everything you do in your life.
Right. You use your kids to justify everything you do in your life and you're not thinking about other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he leaves.
Very
And then they leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
But getting back to my question, what do you think of the way Richard Linklater leaves some things unanswered?
It's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to me because I would have at least want to know a little bit of a hint as to what could have happened.
Between Like Jim and Liv.
Jim and
or what
Liv,
happened
Liv
to
and
Bill's
Bill,
kids.
Bill's kids, because you never see him again.
I don't think so.
You never see him
I
again.
thought maybe one of them was there at Mason's graduation party, but I couldn't tell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, and then you never know how Liv and Jim broke up.
No.
Yeah. Because obviously that happened. He's not there anymore.
But overall, it sounds like you really enjoyed this movie.
I did. I don't know if it's my favorite one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I mean, I don't make lists for movies that I like because it's just too hard. So
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Another way I don't necessarily think of favorite movies is films that'll stick with me.
That definitely will stick with me.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll watch it again because there's just a lot of things in it that I don't know. I may watch it again or I may not watch it again. I don't know.
But you would recommend this movie to relatives, though?
Yes.
Nice.
I would.
Anything else you want to say about it?
Movie is 2.5 hours long. There's a whole bunch of stuff packed into it, but I think overall you'll enjoy it.
Yes. Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yes.
Jaylo.
Yes.
Did you have any dreams last night?
I did. It was a weird one.
Tell me.
I think I was trying to write a complaint about something, and I was trying to write it on my computer that was in the dream, but for some reason I couldn't tell because the JAWS wasn't on. It was very strange. I was trying to write some complaint about something, and it was odd.
Yes.
Yes. What about you?
No dreams.
No dreams.
No dreams, yeah, was. Yeah, was. Is there anything else you want to say, Baze, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, watch these movies if you want to know more about this couple in Vienna. Maybe watch the sequels to Before Sunrise.
So you are glad that I've shown you both movies.
Yes.
And it sounds like, and one of the things I'd like to do is surprise you with movies, because it sounds like I succeeded with both movies, because you thought that Before Sunrise was going to be more sexual.
I did.
And you weren't sure what to expect
Well,
from
I mean,
Boyhood.
Before Sunrise, I mean, what else? I mean, when I think of Before Sunrise, that could have happened before sunrise.
Right.
You know, I thought maybe they would be... I thought maybe they would be in bed the whole time. I don't know.
These movies surprised me, and I was able to use them to successfully surprise you, is what it sounds like. Yeah. And you're glad you've seen them.
Yes.
And it sounds like you think that Richard Linklater does work really well with Ethan Hawke.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
And it sounds like you like him as a director for a lot of the movies that you've seen anyway.
These are my two favorite movies of his.
Mm-hmm. Are you thinking about watching more?
Well, I've seen other movies. I think I've said this before, but I think Dazed and Confused is overrated, which a lot of people would disagree with. Mm-hmm. I watched part of the movie Bernie. I couldn't really get into it. But these two films to me hold up. And I want to see...
Not to be confused with Weekend at Bernie's, right? Which was a dumb movie.
No. Okay. This was a movie that was like half documentary, half fictionalized.
Really?
Yeah. It's about this guy, Bernie, who killed somebody in Texas. Uh-huh. And he ends up living with Richard Linklater, from what I heard.
Oh,
it's a really bizarre story.
But he knew this guy.
I don't think he knew him before he started making the movie.
Okay.
But he's an interesting director. Even if I don't like everything that he does, I appreciate these two films a lot. Okay. And I do think I owe it to myself to finally watch the sequels to Before Sunrise.
Okay.
Because I have a copy of all three of them.
All right.
I have the trilogy. I've only watched the one movie.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you will. Yes.
No. Very good movies. I'm glad you like the movies that I saw, that I showed you. Mm-hmm. Because I know that there have been a few movies that you didn't really think that I should have showed you, but for the most part, you like the movies I showed you.
And that's going to happen with everybody.
Yeah.
You've liked pretty much everything I've shown you, except for maybe Inner Space.
Inner Space, and I don't think I'll watch The Bad News Bears again.
That's right. You didn't really like that one.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we've shown each other some good
for the
flicks.
most part, we definitely lucked out.
Yes.
Lucked out?
I would say that.
Yes, on the movies that we have seen together.
I know you haven't committed to this yet, babes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been floating this idea for a couple months. But I do think it would be cool next weekend if we did a Woody Harrelson, Bill Murray film weekend. How are you feeling about that at this moment?
I'm not sure. I still want to do I think it would be kind of fun to do like a wedding theme night and then have maybe 2 movies of them on another night.
See, I think
I don't know.
A 4-film weekend would be really cool. Because we started off with their first collaboration and ended off with what I believe is their most recent one. Yeah. But it's something to think about.
I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, babes. Jaylo.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so. Good food, good movies, good music.
Yes.
Good music, yes.
Good music, Jaylo.
I introduced you to the Manhattan Transfer last night.
That was pretty cool.
Oh,
I like them.
Awesome. They're so good. I don't know if there's any... I think there may be some surviving members. I know one of them died. But I was introduced to them during my years at the blind school. In fact, the quartet that I was in on the side when I was in choir did a couple of versions of songs that they did. One being A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, I remember something I was going to ask you about that came up in Boyhood.
Okay.
It came up earlier in this. You said something about maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. You don't completely agree with the Red Letter Bible thing?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, okay. There is a sect in Christianity called Red Letter Christianity, and there's been a lot of Christian circles that have been very against it. And the reason why is that these Christians that have subscribed to Red Letter Christianity, specifically to people that I can think of is Tony Campolo, who actually spoke at my university. I didn't know about them until my friend was told me about him a little bit. Okay. And then this woman named Kathy Tricoli, who's a famous singer.
I don't know either of these people, but keep going.
It's okay.
Is the Kathy lady, is she a Christian singer or just a singer in general?
She sang some pop stuff, and she's also a Christian singer. She sings, she does sing. I don't know a lot of her stuff. Yeah. It's okay. But what's his name? Tony Campolo is a proponent of Red Letter Christianity, where all they do is take the red letters of the Bible and apply it to their life. But the problem with that is, for Christian circles, that the red letters in the Bible only accounts to part of it.
So just to add a little bit of context, the red letter is the part of the Bible where Jesus is actually speaking, correct?
They only use those parts of the Bible with the red letters because it's only Jesus speaking, but it completely dismisses everything else.
So you don't really learn about Moses.
You don't learn about any of that. Yes, yes, exactly. And so they only limit it to those parts, and a lot of people in Christian circles are very much against it, and I'm very critical of it too.
Because it's too simplistic.
It's too simplistic, yes. It's too simplistic. It simplifies it to the point where you're missing the entire point. Yes.
I don't know Mr. Campoli. I don't know this Kathy lady, but...
yeah, Tony Campolo is different.
But...
different, yeah. I've heard some things on what he said in on YouTube, and I'm like, no. I would understand why people would appeal to it, but I think it's just way too simplistic.
Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't hold up. And by the way, speaking of which,
go ahead.
They A.J. Jacobs, when I read his book The Year of Living Biblically, did touch on it a little bit.
I forgot about that. It's been a while since I've read that.
Yeah, he touched on a little bit of the more liberal parts of Christianity, which I never understood, and apparently you don't either.
But if I were to be a Christian, I would be a hippie one. I would go to a hippie church.
That I would highly advise you not to do.
Because it would be embracing Christianity.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay.
You would be missing the entire point entirely.
I don't ever see myself as being a Christian, but if I were to become one, I could not be a fire.
You never know.
Christian. I'd have to be like a liberal,
never know.
hippie Christian.
You never know.
What?
And by the way,
go ahead.
The whole so-called hippie Christian movement is something I'd be very, very critical of.
I think it's a little bit strange. Having said that,
I don't understand it.
Having said that, I knew a few kind of like liberal hippie Christians in Boulder, and they're all very, very nice people.
I'm sure
very nice people.
I'm sure they're nice people, but I think they're missing the entire point.
Let me ask you this, babes.
Yes.
You had a choice. I am like I am now, where I don't believe in Jesus, and I don't think I could ever be a Christian. Because
you don't know that.
I think you have to believe in Jesus to be a Christian.
You have to, but saying that you never would is
okay.
I think it's pushing.
Let me ask you a question. You could either have it as I am now, or I believe in Jesus and I read the Bible every day, but I go to a hippie church and I follow the more like left-leaning views of the Bible. Which would you rather have?
Why are you giving me this choice?
Because I want to see what you'd say. What would you rather?
I'm not going to answer that, Bubs.
Really?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that because I don't know how I would answer it.
I'm assuming, and I don't know, that you would rather have me be a hippie Christian than not be a Christian at all. But I could be wrong.
I don't think so.
I think that's the only way I could be a Christian.
Yeah, but come on, though. This I interpret it would be your way of Christianity, but it wouldn't exactly be the way that God would want you to be. That's how I interpret it. Because if you were open to the transformation that he would be able to work would be able to, and I don't really want to get into this because this is not the,
and we're about to wrap
podcast,
this up too.
But I'll just say this. If you let him really, really work inside you, I don't think that you would be thinking about things the way that you are now.
You have told me before that you don't believe somebody could be a lefty and also be a full-on Christian.
I do not believe that.
Wow, that is so amazing to me.
No, I don't believe it. I don't understand it. So much about Christianity is so different than what liberals espouse to.
Yeah, so I
so different.
I do agree with you. I find it hard to believe that there are lefties who identify as Christians, but
there's less lefties I think that would identify.
I know, but there are some out there. But I also find it hard to believe that you would be critical of somebody who's a Christian but also has lefty political views.
Yes, I would.
Wow.
I would. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. It's so contrary.
Yeah.
To the teachings of Jesus.
You would not accept
so
anybody.
Much. Yes, I would not accept it.
Wow.
Very contrary. I would highly question their own beliefs, but that's just me.
I'm saying agnostic then. We learned it here today.
Bubs, come on.
Okay.
You don't know that. You don't know that. You can't say that. You cannot say that.
Oh.
No.
So I cannot go to a fire and brimstone church.
You
and
never,
also,
you
no.
never know.
Let me ask the question. The way I understand it, I cannot be a regular attendee at a fire and brimstone church and still be a Bernie Sanders supporter.
I don't believe you can.
Wow.
No. I think it's so. I think it's so contrary.
On one level, I get it because why would you want to if you're a lefty? But on another level, I don't get why a church wouldn't be accepting of somebody with different views like that if they also believe in Jesus. But
there are. If it only so because and then there are some divisions in churches too about what has been studied, interpretations of scriptures.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would question is how that would affect a person's salvation. And I don't know that a lefty would really understand that.
Okay, so let me ask you. I have two more questions for you, and then we're going to wrap this up.
I think we should. Can you ask me out for this?
I think it's interesting, though.
No. But why?
Because I do.
But,
Okay, but I think these are easy questions, though.
We'll see.
Okay. Your mom knows that I'm not a believer in the teachings of Jesus, right?
Right.
That's not exactly my question.
Okay.
But when you told her that, I know that you didn't tell her the whole thing, but did you just have to say, well, he's kind of left leaning politically, and that was the end of the conversation? Or how did you phrase
No,
it?
I kind of... when it came to religious things?
Yeah, did you just have to say... Could you have just said that? I just
gave her an idea.
Okay.
I just said something to the effect of... I don't know if I should say it here.
Does it involve anybody else's name?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
It doesn't.
Go ahead.
Basically, I basically explained it this way.
Yes.
I said he believes that there is... He believes that that it's possible that there may be a God, but he doesn't recognize Jesus as God.
That's a fair way to say it.
That's what I said, but I didn't really give too much into it because I didn't want her to ask any more questions because I was already like, I don't really want to talk about this. It's kind of personal.
I think that's a fair way to say it, though, to be honest.
But I didn't want to go too much into it because...
But she also knows that I lean politically more left than you do.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. And I was very honest about that. Yeah. I didn't go too much into detail.
Yeah.
But I did admit it, and I said that's why I said I don't want there to be any discussions because I'm not ready to handle it should any like heated discussions go on because she gets passionate about her views as well. Yeah, and I do too. And as do I. I mean, she gets a little bit more heated than I do. Okay. I get heated, but she gets really heated.
Yeah, and I can't just kiss her to make it go away.
I know it's not going to work out that way, and I would break up with you if you did. Right. And I just didn't want to. I mean, I didn't want to go there because, there are people in my family that are more outspoken than I am, and I don't like being like that, and I don't like confrontation, and I don't like debates, but if I have to, I will. That's the kind of person I am. But with her, it's like, no, I don't want to be the referee in this whole thing. Mm-mm.
Very good, babe. So to wrap it up, one last question, but I think this is going to be an easy one.
All right.
Maybe a couple more, but not many.
No, just one more, please. Okay. Please.
When that Tony guy came to speak at your school,
yeah,
was there a discussion after he left? And if so, what was that like?
There was no discussion because the girl that I went with, we just went there to... it was a chapel service that goes on in the middle of the week on Wednesday morning, and sometimes I go there, but we didn't really have a discussion. Nice. But she's heard of him more than I have, and I didn't know who he was until I did more research.
Very good. I don't know anything about him.
That's okay.
Or that Kathy lady. They could be nice people for all
they seem, I mean, I don't know. I don't know who they are, but Tony Campolo appears to some Christians, not all, but some. Oh. But I don't know. I don't. Yeah.
And he may have changed his views by now. Or she may have too, but I don't know. But
I don't know.
I would ask you to kiss me, but you told me not to ask you any more questions. So give me a kiss. I'm telling, not asking.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not asking. I'm telling. Okay.
But you're ordering me to kiss you
because you said not to ask you any more questions.
I know, but are you?
Right, can I ask you one more question?
What?
Would you like to kiss me?
Yes, probably. All right. That's enough. No noises.
Anything else, Jaylo? We good? I guess that's technically a question.
We are good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.